Good morning, everybody. It's good to talk with all of you. This is the first Mayor's Blog of 2021. And just what a wonderful morning we have today. We've got the fog out there. As I came over to work, it was difficult to see very far ahead of us. I hope that lifts pretty quick. But let's make sure as we have that kind of weather that we're careful. Just a couple things that I want to talk with you about today. Number one is that the legislative session for Idaho has started. And those of you who have been following me, and if you haven't been, it's time to start following this. The legislature is starting to have some very serious discussions about property taxes. Now, I think most of us are on the exact same page that property taxes need to be addressed. I don't know that there's anybody out there that's not acknowledging that that's a problem. The challenge is, how do we address that? How do we appropriately address property taxes? First, I want to just give you a couple of my own thoughts. Property taxes, if you'll study the history of property taxes, it's very interesting. When this country started, that's basically the way the federal government was funded, was through property taxes. At a certain point, they quit using property taxes and they handed them to the states. And at a certain point, the states handed them to cities, counties, and other taxing districts. And perhaps we're at a stage where new thought needs to enter, and we need to find other ways to fund city, county government, and other taxing districts. And if that's the case, we ought to open that discussion wide. We do have those who just think that it's a matter of cutting property taxes, and I can guarantee if that happens, it will have a detrimental effect on cities, counties, and other taxing districts to where we won't be able to provide the services that we need to. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I've heard that really concerns me is they want to make it so that we can't start having capital plans for things like replacing streets and street maintenance. And how silly would that be if we can't put dollars away for the maintenance that we know is going to need to happen tomorrow? So some of the discussion, I think most of us recognize, is not a good idea. I'm asking you to please get involved this year. Find out what's being said. Bring your best ideas forward, and let's find a way to get around this. Now, there's an article in the Journal this morning that I want to talk just a little bit about. The Democrats and their leadership and their caucus have come up with some pretty good ideas. And I certainly hope that we have learned that we can't let partisan politics be the leader in our day. We've got to be willing to listen to everybody and allow their ideas to be judged on their merits. They have three things that I think are appropriate, should be looked at. One is the homeowner's exemption. It's capped at the $100,000 right now, and it probably needs to be adjusted. The second one is the circuit breaker that gives the opportunity for people on fixed incomes, older folks, veterans to get a break from property taxes, and that needs to be looked at so that we're making sure and doing that appropriately. One of the biggest concerns I've personally had is how ridiculous it is that we would even come close to taxing a senior citizen out of a home that they own and have worked many years to purchase. We need to give that to due diligence. The last one was an exemption for large businesses, property tax exemptions for large businesses. They brought up particularly that there was a particular law that a company that came in and did $1 billion worth of building to bring in their business, that they'd be given a big property tax break. That was done to draw a French company that was going to come and do some work with the INL. They never did come, but apparently Micron and several other big businesses have taken advantage of that law, and it's costing a huge amount of property taxes. So again, all of those kinds of things really need to be on the table and looked at. Last year there was a legislator who had put out that maybe we could replace most property taxes with a sales tax. I think it has merit. Again, as I looked at that, they recognized it still needed to be fine-tuned and needed to be looked at to how it would work exactly. So, but again, stay involved. We do need to have property tax relief, and I believe that it can be done if we all give it our very best efforts. So I'm asking each one of us to follow that, have discussions with your elected representatives, try your best to understand what the issues are, and let's get this thing taken care of appropriately. Now I'd just like to talk a little bit about things that I hope we've learned together over our collective experience over the last year. First, I just want to take a minute and talk about the coronavirus that we've been dealing with. I hope that as we review the last year that we don't just concentrate on the difficult and pretty negative things that happened, because they certainly were there, but they happened and I think we dealt with them, and I believe around this area we dealt with them quite appropriately. But let us take some time and think about the things that we were able to learn because of the adjustments that needed to be made. I know that as we have done this here at City Hall and as I've done it in my own life, there are things that I've learned to do a little differently that actually are becoming more efficient. And so I just hope that one of the things that we'll do as we go through these difficult times is make sure that we take opportunity to recognize the blessing that can come as we make proper adjustments. So that's going to probably continue for the next little while, and I just would encourage all of us to try to do that in a very positive nature. And I think if we do, we'll come out of this in a much better shape and be able to get back to the normal that each of us really do desire to have. The second thing is the things that have happened with this election over this last year. Truly a tragedy. What happened in Washington, D.C. should have never happened. That kind of a thing is totally not acceptable. And I don't care, again, we've got to find a way to get partisan politics out of this. It doesn't have to do with whether we're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, or whatever. There are actions that are totally inappropriate. And anytime violence is brought in and we have protests that become violent in nature, that's not appropriate, and it certainly isn't constitutional. Constitutionally, we do have the right to peaceful protest and to redress grievances with the government, which means we certainly have the ability to bring those up and say we need to have a discussion. But I believe every one of us in this area understand that you don't do these things through violence, and you make sure that you stay within the law, and we have ways to change things through the laws that exist. The last thing I want to say about that is there's a statement that's been made that I totally agree with, and that's that all politics are local. And that really is true when you think about it. And I just want us to, in this area, to concentrate much more upon our local politics. That means the people that we elect to do the things for us locally, from school boards, city councils, mayors, county commissioners, different boards that get elected. Let's concentrate on them. Let's concentrate on our legislative representatives and our state government, and recognize that those are places that truly do affect our day-to-day lives. And if we'll work hard at making sure we do the right things in our local politics, we'll be able to be an example and be able to work appropriately to try to regain what we'd like to see happen at the national level. Now, again, I don't want to by any means underplay the things that have happened nationally. They're difficult, they really are. And we've got a road ahead of us. But I know this much for a fact, that no matter what our differences are, we have got to learn to be civil in our discourse that we have with one another. We've got to learn the process of disagreeing without being disagreeable. We've got to be willing to be open-minded and listen to people and other ideas. We don't have all of the answers, folks, and it's important for us to listen to others and recognize that sometimes somebody who we might disagree with on some things will have an idea that we should be listening to and that will be a benefit to all of us collectively. I know we can do it. I'm grateful to live in this area where we have people who see these things, and really, in a big way, I see that happen in our area. Let's not allow partisan politics to become anything that takes place in our state or city or county governments. Let's work together to see that we do the right thing for all of us. Now again, I'm thankful to live in this area. I'm grateful for each of you. I'm grateful for the encouragements that we've been given as we have had to make some very difficult decisions over the last little while. And I'm grateful for the way our community has rallied and done things that I believe are right and correct. I've been happy with what I've seen happen in our community. So thank you for who you are. Let's continue. Let's do the very best that we can. And I'll talk to you again another time.